This girl is really something. She caught 3 magical girls and subjected them to the most atrocious punishments, making the magical girls cry for their parents. The girl also awakened a special hobby. She wants to bully the magical girls severely, which makes her incredibly happy. You should know, the protagonist is a top fan who adores magical girls. Every time she sees a magical girl defeating villains, she cheers with joy. Just when she was envying them immensely, a little black creature flew over and whispered a very tempting offer to the protagonist, who was feeling down. Do you want to become a magical girl? Do you want to save the world? Just nod, and you can become a magical girl admired by everyone. Hearing this, the protagonist suddenly panicked. Wasn't this a bit too hasty? She wasn't prepared at all. However, the little black creature didn't care about that. Becoming a magical girl just required her nod. Believing the little black creature's nonsense, the protagonist agreed to become a magical girl. The next second, she turned into an evil female executive. The little black creature said, "What's the point of becoming a magical girl? Becoming an evil female executive is the best because you can catch magical girls and bully them severely." Hearing this, the protagonist was dumbfounded. Goodness, was this a scam? What happened to becoming a magical girl? Why did she suddenly become a member of an evil organization? She wanted a refund. The little black creature said it was possible and then left. The protagonist was a bit regretful. Was it really that easy to let her go? Just when the protagonist thought she could return to a peaceful life, the little black creature found her again. It had been tracking her this whole time, confirming that the protagonist was indeed a fanatical fan of magical girls, further solidifying its choice. The protagonist really wanted to cry, but she was too naive. The little black creature beside her was a professional con artist, fully aware of the protagonist's hobbies because she particularly loved magical girls. Becoming a member of an evil organization to bully magical girls was indeed the protagonist's dream. Of course, she hadn't unleashed her true nature until the arrival of 3 magical girls. The protagonist was a bit anxious, wanting to explain that she was deceived, but the magical girls didn't believe her. To avoid being eliminated, the little black creature instructed the protagonist to tap a nearby flower with her magical wand, summoning a monster. With absolute strength, she beat up the magical girls. The protagonist was thrilled. She couldn't believe she was bullying her once idols. Her face flushed with excitement. Which convinced the little black creature even more that she was exactly the kind of high-level executive the evil organization needed. Although the protagonist verbally rejected such behavior, her heart was incredibly excited. Meanwhile, the magical girls were miserable, having been beaten up for no reason. The next morning, the protagonist thought it was all a dream, but seeing the little black creature beside her, she felt somewhat disenchanted. When she went to school and encountered a pink-haired magical girl who greeted her, she felt a pang of pain. She had beaten her up too harshly the day before, leaving the pink-haired girl in despair. The other 2 magical girls felt the same. If they discovered her true identity, they would definitely kill the evil female executive from yesterday. At this point, the little black creature stirred up trouble again. The magical girls sensed danger, asked for leave from their teacher, and ran to the rooftop to transform. However, the transformation process was painful. Their wounds were still aching. After they left, the little black creature sent a message to the protagonist, urging her to transform and meet up with it to bully the magical girls again. The protagonist wanted to refuse, but her body honestly went to the rooftop, transformed, and joined the little black creature. Once again, using her magical wand, she captured the 3 magical girls and gave them a thorough beating. The protagonist suddenly fell in love with this feeling. Her once idols had now become her victims. She thought this feeling was just too great. However, she still had to restrain herself on the surface. The little black creature noticed the protagonist's strength wasn't enough to suppress the magical girls, so it immediately summoned a portal and took the protagonist to escape. This protagonist is seriously awesome. Ever since she taught those magical girls a lesson last time, she accidentally awakened a super twisted hobby. She became utterly obsessed with the delicate bodies of magical girls, thinking if she ever got the chance, she'd definitely bully them again. But at school, she had to restrain herself. Being a student of pure character, she felt a twinge of guilt at school, especially when she saw the magical girls, feeling a bit embarrassed. Then, A girl with blue hair approached her, and they bumped into each other. The blue-haired girl greeted her warmly, making the protagonist think she was genuinely a good person. This made her feel somewhat guilty about her previous actions towards the magical girls. Then she went to a shrine to pray, determined never to do such things again, and prayed for the deity to drive away the little black creature. Just as she was about to leave after praying, she spotted a book nearby. The content of the book intrigued her, so she couldn't help but pick it up and learn some techniques from it. This book was actually placed by the little black creature, who thought the protagonist wouldn't be interested. But seeing her pick it up, the creature thought it hadn't misjudged her. The protagonist was indeed a hidden pervert. A little shock made the protagonist deeply understand her hobby, and she found a corner to secretly read the book. While she was engrossed in the book, the evil energy inside her suddenly erupted, and she couldn't help but transform into an evil girl. This commotion was discovered by the magical girls, so the blue-haired one transformed and found the protagonist. They started fighting without a word, with the blue-haired girl chasing and hitting her. The protagonist used a mask nearby to block the blue-haired girl's vision, making her blind. The protagonist wanted to sneak away, but the next second, she realized the blue-haired girl seemed unable to see, so her inner evil eagerly approached the blue-haired girl. This scared the blue-haired girl, and before she could resist, her magical wand was knocked away by the protagonist. The blue-haired girl was terrified and tried to run away but fell. Seeing this, the protagonist showed an evil smile, touched the blue-haired girl's body, and savored her delicate figure. Feeling exhilarated, the magical girl was her idol, and now she could bully her idol up close. The protagonist was thrilled and bullied the blue-haired girl for 2.5 hours. In the evening, the protagonist was finally satisfied and whispered something in the blue-haired girl's ear before leaving. The next day, the little black creature found the protagonist and asked her to choose a name since she was a member of the evil organization. The protagonist wasn't interested, but when she heard the name the creature chose, the protagonist was puzzled and asked the creature what the end goal was. Was it to conquer the world? The creature said she was mistaken and then told her a story to deceive her, saying they were originally mascots from another world but were driven away by other mascots because they were too dark. The mascots also used magical girls to exterminate their kind. Hearing this, the protagonist immediately believed it. But the creature said the naive girl was thus deceived by the little black creature. Meanwhile, the magical girls also faced a little difficulty because the blue-haired girl seemed to have fallen for the protagonist's methods and didn't dislike her. In fact, she even liked her a bit. This scene was observed by the yellow-haired girl. After they separated, the yellow-haired girl found a secluded corner, waiting for the protagonist to ambush her. The little black creature immediately notified the protagonist that it was time to bully the magical girls. The protagonist, very dedicated to her role, arrived on time in front of the yellow-haired girl, summoned a monster with her magical wand, and then used a candle to burn the yellow-haired girl. The protagonist was excited, but the yellow-haired girl, with an Oscar-worthy performance, discovered the protagonist's weakness and managed to defeat her. After the protagonist left, the little black creature came to her side, thinking the protagonist would be scared, but she showed such a smile. The protagonist is truly something else. After being defeated by the blonde magical girl, she didn't get angry at all. Instead, she felt like she had reached the pinnacle of her life. From then on, the protagonist awakened a hobby. Whenever she encountered a cute girl, she couldn't help but want to bully her. If it was a magical girl, the protagonist would be even happier. Of course, as a member of an evil organization, there must be a base serving as the headquarters of the evil organization. So, in the morning, the little black creature opened a portal and took the protagonist to the base of the evil organization. Looking at the building in the distance, the protagonist was a bit taken aback, while the little black creature kept chattering beside her, talking about the benefits of the base and taking her on a tour. However, the protagonist was not interested. She just wanted to go home. Just as she was about to open the door to go home, a voice came from the side. A girl came out, and this girl, named Ki Woo, was also a member of the evil organization. Just like the protagonist, Ki Woo rushed to the protagonist, grabbed her hand, and greeted her. The way she greeted her was with a grenade in her hand. The protagonist was dumbfounded. As the bomb exploded, the protagonist also transformed and dodged the attack. Seeing the protagonist's excellent escape ability, Ki Woo was somewhat happy. Then she transformed and took out a pistol aimed at the protagonist. Many cannons appeared behind her, launching an attack on the protagonist. Seeing her colleague being so friendly, the protagonist gradually started to become twisted. Initially, she was being suppressed, but as her inner desires rose, Ki-woo could only be beaten. The protagonist used her magic wand to turn a light bulb into a tool, trapping Ki-woo inside. Ki-woo wanted to take out a grenade to blow up the thing, but the protagonist told her not to do so, or else she would be the one unlucky. Ki-woo had no choice but to put down the grenade, and the protagonist became even happier. She hadn't expected that. Aside from magical girls, members of the evil organization could also be so cute. So, the protagonist started to control the light bulb to electrocute Ki-woo, giving her a lesson in love. Ki-woo's screams echoed all around, but the protagonist became even more excited. In this way, Ki-woo was completely broken by the protagonist, but Ki-woo ended up falling for the protagonist, all because the protagonist said such a nice thing. This sentence deeply touched Ki-woo's heart. She decided that the protagonist was the person she wanted to pursue in this life. Then, the next day, she transferred schools to become the protagonist's classmate. However, the protagonist was unaware of this at the time. On her way to school, she was still reminiscing about bullying Ki-woo the day before. It felt great. Just then, the pink-haired girl greeted the protagonist, which was seen by Ki-woo from a distance. Jealous, she rushed over and hugged the protagonist. The protagonist felt a bit despondent. She thought she was evil enough for targeting magical girls, but Ki-woo had set her sights on her and even wanted to date her. The next day, they went to a square. The protagonist was waiting for Ki-woo there. As soon as Ki-woo saw the protagonist, she pounced on her, knocking her to the ground. The protagonist was helpless but couldn't refuse a cute girl. So, they went to eat, watch a movie, and then buy magical girl figurines. Ki-woo saw the protagonist acting this way and was a bit unhappy. She was so cute as an evil girl, yet the protagonist was still obsessed with magical girls. The protagonist had to apologize to her. Ki-woo also realized at this moment that the protagonist seemed a bit reserved. She was quite evil yesterday, but today she turned into a little submissive. The protagonist didn't know why. She didn't understand herself. So, she asked Ki-woo why she became a member of the evil organization. Ki-woo explained her reason. The reason was simple. She hated magical girls for stealing the spotlight. Then Ki-woo took out a transformation star, and they instantly became evil girls. Passersby saw this and ran away. The magical girls sensed the evil aura and ran over, ready to defeat them. This annoyed Ki-woo. They hadn't even started doing bad things yet. Hearing this, the pink-haired girl apologized to them, which left the yellow-haired girl speechless. She directly challenged Ki-woo. The two were on the verge of a fight, leaving the protagonist's side to fight in the sky. Meanwhile, the protagonist fought with the blue-haired girl. The blue-haired girl, instead of being afraid, was somewhat happy when she saw the protagonist, wondering how the protagonist would bully her this time. Seeing her daydreaming, the protagonist used vines to control her and planned to leave. But suddenly, her inner evil stirred again. A magical girl who couldn't move was too tempting for her. So, she turned her head to look at the blue-haired girl and drooled, then started to bully the magical girl. Ki-woo fought with the yellow-haired girl, but the yellow-haired girl had high defense and seemed smart. Ki-woo was no match for her. Just as Ki-woo was running out of strength, the protagonist gave up on the blue-haired magical girl and used a figurine to rescue Ki-woo. They hid in a corner waiting for the magical girl to leave. Ki-woo felt a bit sorry, but the protagonist, with her charm maxed out, conquered Ki-woo again. Ki-woo's affection for the protagonist exploded.